Hi friends, it's Kayla. I'm so excited about this video because I am once again reading Booktubers' favorite books for a couple weeks of January. I have blocked out my entire weekend. I have uploaded so many videos in the last couple weeks that I have nothing planned this weekend except lying in bed and going through this playlist of 50 videos that popped up in my subscription box over the last month of people sharing their favorites. I went ahead and turned it into a playlist that you can also access if you want to find new booktubers or you want to watch any videos that I'm referencing. I'm not going to show you reactions to all of the videos, obviously, but when one pops up throughout the weekend, I literally have like 20 hours of YouTube to watch here. My goal is to read the favorite books of people who already read similarly to me. So as I'm finally going through this playlist and watching everybody's favorites videos, as soon as someone pops up who throughout their video, like maybe things have shown up that were also in my favorites videos or favorites just in general in my life, or who already I know read similarly to me, I will record my reaction as I'm watching it. The goal by the end of the weekend is that I have 5 to 10 booktubers and 5 to 10 book recommendations. It's not about who's my favorite, it's not about who is talking about the most interesting books, it's statistically who has other favorites that we've shared and like how can I find new favorites by reading those people's favorites. That was a confusing sentence. Last year, I tried to step outside my comfort zone a little bit and read genres that didn't totally match my taste. I made a couple rules for myself, but this year I'm gonna go more into just like what I really genuinely think I will enjoy. I do have 2 fun checklist items that I would love to hit. One of them is a book that's already on my TBR. That would be awesome. So if anything pops up that I already own, that would be a good pick. And then my second one is to read a book I have absolutely never heard of. Or maybe I've seen, but like I know nothing about it. Okay, I've watched a few videos and the first one that I'm going to watch with you fully, like I haven't started it, I haven't checked it out, I have a feeling.
Hey y'all, it's Brody. First, we have King of the Dragonflies by Case and Calendar, and I have Foul is Fair by Hannah Cap, and this is a Macbeth retelling that was suggested to me by my friend Heather from Aphrodite Reads.
I kind of forgot that that was this year, even though I know it was a 2020 release. I picked this up because of Brody and then didn't end up reading it.
Then we have another arc that I got, and that is Empire of Wild by Sherry Demelina.
Yes! That was a 4-star for me.
Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I still have not talked about this.
I didn't love it, but like, I completely understand everyone's passion for this one.
A Lot Sway by Darcy Little Badger, which I think I've kind of
Yes!
become
Duh, I knew
for.
this would be on here. I don't know why I'm so surprised.
We have Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas.
Oh yeah! That's a good one too!
I have My Sister the Serial
Yes,
Killer
I
by
fucking love
Oyen
that book!
Braithwaite. This is a thriller about a woman whose sister kills men. Best anthology I read this year, which
That's
is
one of my
Beyond
favorite
Bodies, Space, and
anthologies
Time,
ever.
Indigenous LGBT sci-fi anthology. This one has to do mostly with Two-Spirit and indigenous queer identities. The last books that I read this year, that is Ghostwood Song by Erica Waters. This is an Appalachian love letter to bluegrass.
I think Wheezy is the one who made Brody read this, and Wheezy has been influencing me to read it as well.
And then we have something that you all have been waiting for this entire video, and that is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Have I pounded into your head enough this year that you should read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones?
Okay, oh my gosh. So there were, I think, 6, maybe a little more in this video that I also gave like 4 or 5 stars. I do have Foul is Fair on my TBR shelf, so if we're kicking off the entire video with the fulfilling the challenge that I started out saying I wanted to do, like, okay, I'm gonna take a pause from video reactions and I want to integrate a couple other bookish community things. I'm just gonna listen to Wheezy's podcast. I know there's a 2020 book survey on her podcast with Gala Reads, and I know that one of the questions in the bookish survey is your favorite book of the year. So I don't know if she's gonna answer it or if she's gonna do an entire podcast dedicated to favorite books, because I have a feeling we may have something here too.
Let's see. Best book you read in 2020. I have 3 answers for this because I can never choose just one. The first is A Lot Sway by Darcy Little Badger. My second favorite book is Ghostwood Song by Erica Waters.
I knew it.
I know I haven't shut up about this one.
Okay, so if the third book is also a book that I enjoyed, then I'm gonna read Ghostwood Song.
And then I loved Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. I love body horror and folk horror, and Rory really has a great command of that.
Okay, so of Wheezy's 3 favorites, I loved one, I liked one, And just because of this combination of two people loving Ghostwood Song, I really just want to pick it up. I barely know what it is, but I know that Wheezy's been like pushing it throughout the year. Okay, and then in the same way that I have just been adding favorites videos to my playlist and not watching them, I have been saving, like every time I see a stack of books pop into my Instagram feed, I've been ignoring it and just saving them so I could look back and see if there is a bookstagrammer who has really similar reading taste to me. Because I feel like sometimes it gets all blended together and I never really remember who loved what if they don't have a video presence. So I'm just gonna start here and see if anything matches. Okay, there's like a couple books there, a couple books there, none of those. I might have to speed this up. Okay. Okay, Catherine House, The Night of the Mannequins, Cemetery Boys, Tender as the Flesh. I think that's our top one so far. Mentally Booked. Oh, those are honorable mentions. Wait. Oh, I also saved her favorite. Okay, Alatsaway, Hood Feminism. Wait, there's quite a few books here that I've read. A few that I liked, a few that I didn't. I think we could call that 5. So let's see if there's anyone with any more. Oh, that's that's all the books she read in 2020. Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 4 in this one. 3 or 4 in that one. 2 in that one. This is going well. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Brandon. Oh my gosh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? Okay, the ones I haven't read are Scythe, Darius the Grey is Not Okay, Sheets, Song of Achilles. Oh no, wait, that's an end of year wrap up. Wait a minute. Whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. Okay, he's been doing a countdown of his top 20 for the last like week. All those ones in that photo are in his top 20 of the year. Okay. Okay, let's just finish this out because there's some other big stacks here. Ooh. The Martian, The One, Clappany Land, The Deep, Home Before Dark, and Dark Matter. That's 6. I think that's our second highest one. And she also has Scythe in her stack. Tells of Tales. Oh, that's the last one. I might just have to go with Scythe. I think that just decided it for me. I wasn't gonna make definitive answers until I'd filmed everything. Okay, I just got to Meg's video and I just want to watch it with you because I have good feelings.
I'm not ranking them in this video. I'm going to be doing a book awards at the end of the year. My last video I think will be going up on New Year's Eve, where I will give my favourite book of the year. I haven't decided it yet. Like, I can't choose. It's going to be really hard.
Okay, let's make a decision right now. Okay, I don't know what her favorite's going to be. It might be something that I love too. But if this video goes the way that I think it might, and we have like quite a few similar favorites, maybe she will choose what I have to read, and that is her absolute favorite of the year.
So first, one of the earliest books I read this year, and it is Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff.
That was a 5-star read for me.
So another one of my favorite books of the year is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. The Guest List by Lucy Foley is definitely up there as one of my favorite books this year.
Meg is the reason I read The Guest List.
There's No Exit by Taylor Adams.
I gave that 4 stars.
It's just weird book is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. Are you surprised it's on here?
We read that together for a book club.
Next, let's talk about my favourite non-fiction of the year, and that is Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I loved this so much.
That was in my top 10. I don't even think I remembered she read this year.
The one top book I don't have to hold up is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora
I don't know if
Goss.
I've watched her
You'll
read
know,
that.
if you watch my vlogs, how much I love this book in this series.
I'm a bad friend. I really don't remember that book.
Next is The Poppy War by I.F. Wang. The next favourite is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern,
which is one of my like 4.5 star like favorite books.
This book is one that almost didn't make it on the list, but I had to mention it, and that is Middle Game by
course
Sean
it made the
Maguire.
list.
This is about twins Roger and Dodger
And
who
better
have been
made the list.
created by this alchemist. Really was outstanding to me, and that is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo.
Oh
so
my
this is
God.
the story.
I also gave that 5 stars, and did it make my list last year? Almost made my list last year. Okay, whoa. I think she had 8 of her 11 Is that right? There were not only books that I've read, but books that I loved. Me and Meg, we are on the same page. So I basically have to choose between Heartstopper, The Poppy War, or what was that other one? The Alchemist's Daughter? Let's see what she said is her top favorite. The odds are it's gonna be one I've already read, but let's just see.
So my favorite book that I read this year, you're gonna be surprised. I don't think people are gonna call this. My favorite book that I read this year was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss.
I can't believe that. I actually can't believe that.
Okay. I don't know how to feel. Okay, I'm making really good progress with my list. Nobody has been over a 4. And I originally thought going into this that 4 was a good number. But there are so many people at a 4. But then Brody, Meg, and Brandon were between like 7 and 14. I have like 7 people left on the list. I realized there's a ton of people who haven't put out a favorites video yet. Like I was really anticipating Jessie's and Noria's and Zoe, and like even Mina's hasn't come out. Also, I'm dying to know Fadwa's list, but I know there's so much going on. So I think I have 7 people left on the list, and I actually think it is possible that they will be some of the highest. Speaking of highest, it only seems right that I watched Natasha's Under the Influence.
I don't know how I found this. I think I asked for like weird book recommendations, and then I think, as usual, a lot of these are suggested by Kayla, BooksandLala, because we have very similar reading tastes. But I don't think she liked this, and I actually loved this. I thought this was really fun. This is The Hike by Drew McGarry.
The Hike also showed up on someone else's favorites list. So I know I'm not a matchmaking service, but you two should be friends. Thanks. I didn't love it, but I recommend it a lot.
I actually didn't know that this book was told in kind of prose poetry format until I picked it up. That is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. That is Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. 21 Things That You May Not Know About the Indian Act.
Oh, you read that during the readathon.
The concept of it is so hard to describe to people, like it's just, anyway. So this is The Seep by Shanna Porter, and this book is just, again, short and is something else. Like that is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson.
Okay, there just needs to be one more, and then I have to read something else from this video.
Alright, so now we're getting into my top 3. I don't want to hear one word about my top 3. Third favorite book of the year is a poetry collection by Lana Del Rey. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass.
I have nothing to say. I am not reading Lana Del Rey's poetry book.
I listened to people when they recommended me this, and I read it and I loved it. That is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab.
What's your number 1 favorite? Oh my gosh, do I know what it is?
Surprised I waited this long to read it, but it is my favorite and also a fantasy. Who knew? To have a fantasy book be like my favorite of the year? Who is she? That's The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Listen, there's very few books in the world that I had to pause.
Oh, okay. So like she said, Natasha and I have really similar reading tastes. And last year, I really just fucked everything up because I was going to read one of her favorites of the year. And I ended up reading, was it 1 or 2 of her favorites, and they were in a genre that I don't read, and I hated them. And there were so many like weird things on her list that I should have read, and I felt guilty about it ever since. I didn't think she was gonna do a favorites video this year. I didn't think I'd get to redeem myself. I just made the best realization of this entire video, and that's that Bria has a booktube channel, Tell of Tales from Bookstagram. She hasn't uploaded for like the second half of 2020, so there's not like a favorites video or anything, but I can still call this reading Booktubers favorites. And look at all the things that we've read similarly. Lakewood and The Chalk Man and With the Fire on High. If We're Villains, Girls of Paper and Fire, even The Power. Our reading taste just very much matches up, and I'm very excited at this realization. I just watched a couple more favorites videos and they didn't turn out to have much matching, but I am left with Gabby, and I just have a feeling. I definitely didn't want to just like have all the same booktubers as last year, but I can't deny our similar reading taste. Like, that's the whole point. I have accidentally been spoiled for quite a few of Gabby's favorites because she showed some of them in the thumbnail. They're on her Bookstagram, and then it's like, you know, when the same people always show up at the beginning of your stories on Instagram, it's like whoever you watch the most, they show up at the beginning. I know she posted like between 5 and 15 in her Instagram stories because I kept going through stories and accidentally being spoiled for one and then leaving her story, but then it would pop up again. But let's just see how many she's going to include, because last year I feel like there was 30.
Hey guys, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. This year I have read more than I've read any year previously. I'm at 143 books, and I've actually had a better reading year than I've had in any previous year, at least like ratings wise. On this list I have 17 of my favorite books of 2020, along with some honorable mentions that I'll go through really quickly. The first one is Felix Ever After by Case and Callender, The Death of Vivek Oji by Owaki Emezi. Then I have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreight.
Little Women and Felix made my top 10. I actually saw that Vivek Oji book pop up in a couple other people's favorites. I think Elias had it, maybe someone else had it, so I'll just pop those up.
Another one of my favorites this year is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
Okay, so this was one of those books that was mentioned a lot in like people's favorites of the year on Twitter, if they could make everyone read one book. But I don't think I ever really looked into what this was. I picked up another Matt Haig recently on my shelf. Gabby and I do match up well with like sci-fi, and this sounds like a little sci-fi, but like rooted in reality maybe.
Another one of my favorites of the year is 11/22/63 by Stephen King.
I love 11/22/63. I was not expecting to see that on her favorites list. This is what I'm talking about. Time travel, a little sci-fi.
Another book that I was completely taken off guard by, and I was so surprised that I love this, is Bunny by Mona Awad. I actually read this book for the video that I did earlier this year of reading Kayla's favorite books, and I'm so glad that I finally picked this book up. Another thriller that I really enjoyed this year is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager.
Okay, we're only halfway through the video, and that makes 6 books that we both put in like favorites lists.
The Troop by Nick Cutter. I might have pushed a lot of people to read this book this year, and then a lot of people really didn't like this book. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I know a lot of people are gonna say this book is overhyped now because nobody will shut the fuck up about this book.
Okay, so we had 7 matching books. Oh, I feel like I should do an entire video reading Gabby's favorites because there are too many options. I have a lot to think about. Okay, I just got so many books. Don't mind Rob snoring in the background. He just got home from work, and Mondays are hard and sometimes you have to take a nap. So I went to the library and I went to my local indie bookstore, and I had one book on my TBR, and I got a really big stack. If there's a book that popped up that you really want me to read, this isn't me saying like, oh, I'm never gonna read it, but here's what I grabbed. I just bought a lot of books today. Actually, before I show you the books that I picked, I need to go over the results because I realized that there were so many videos that I didn't end up showing you because I didn't have very many matches with that person. There's some that I watched and didn't react to live because I didn't think I would have any matches. It's kind of a mess. Here are the results. Of all of the 70 videos that I watched and all of the Bookstagram scrolling that I did, my top 8 humans that I matched the most with are right here. I will explain more, especially about Wheezy and Lexi, in just a second. But these were my top matches that I had 5 books in common with to 13 books in common with. There was a huge chunk that I had 4 in common with, so like almost making it in were Riley and Chanel and Nori and Noelle and Jenny and Sage and Jess and Fadwa. But these were the people that when you look at all of my favorite books from 2020, all of my 4 and 5 star favorite books from 2019, and then from earlier years, anything that I've loved, these people had the most amount of similar books in common with me. And then from each of the 8 book community members, there was a bunch of other books that they mentioned. I didn't show you anyone's full video because I don't want to spoil anyone's favorites videos, so you still have a reason to go over there and watch and subscribe and hang out. But I had a whole selection to choose from each person. I narrowed it down to what I thought I would like or I'm willing to take a chance on, and here we are. So the first one was already on my shelf, Foul is Fair, Hannah Capin. This is some sort of Shakespeare revenge story. Next up, I grabbed The Death of Vivek Oji. This is by Akweki Emezi, and I don't actually fully know what this is. I skipped over all of the descriptions. The struggle to understand a child whose spirit is both gentle and mysterious. The good news about all of these books is they were co-signed by other people. So like, I think every single one of these books, with the exception of maybe one, they were all suggested by two people in, like, at least two people in the list of favorites I watched. Also, the cool thing is every single video that I watched, I had a book in common with like every single person, maybe with the exception of one or two, one of them being Elias, which was a really big shock. But so I definitely feel it's important to pick up one of his favorites. The next up I found from the library, The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. Oh, that one's from the library too. This one's from the library. Theodora Goss. This works for the challenge of a book I've never heard of because I'm a bad friend and I had never heard Meg talk about it. But then I also saw it on Riley's list, and I guess it's like a Sherlock Holmes, Watson, daughters, something. Not something I would have picked up on my own, but I am intrigued by the word alchemist. Okay, and then 6 books that I bought brand new. Oh boy. Ghostwood Song by Erica Waters. It's ghosty. Folk? Is that what Weezy said? It's like a folk story? Okay, then I picked up The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which I'm very excited about. I'm trying to decide what order to read these in and if I have time to read all of them. Next up, I had to grab the #1 recommendation of the year, The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Jonathan McGuire said this book is very close to perfect, which is an interesting blurb. Time travel, maybe library stuff, and a house of orphans, but some fantasy stuff. I wouldn't have picked this up on my own because it looks like middle grade, and the type of middle grade that I pick up isn't just like sweeping adventure stories, and that's what this looks like to me. So anytime someone mentioned it this year, I kind of tuned out, but apparently from what I've heard, it's not even YA. Like, it's an adult fantasy book. Next up, I picked up 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, Helping Canadians Make Reconciliation with Indigenous Peoples a Reality by Bob Joseph. I just realized I don't actually know if this is written by an Indigenous person. Huh. Let me look into it. If you're in the Okanagan area, Mosaic Books. Free bookmarks. Second last pick I wasn't going to pick up because I found it as an audiobook, and Rob listened to the audiobook and he really liked it, but there was only one left at Mosaic Books. So I felt like if I fell in love with this book, Scythe by Neil Shusterman, I would want to own a copy, and then I would have to wait weeks for it to come in the mail if I were to order it from like Indigo. So I just grabbed it. It's thick, 400 and something pages. It's about, I think it's like dystopian in some way, like a society that's gotten rid of everything, even like the need to die or something like that. And then the last one is my most surprising pick, unless I kept in all of the footage. But I had to pick up, for some reason, The Song of Achilles. This appeals to me in no way, but the fact that it came out like 10 years ago, I think, or 8 to 10 years ago, and multiple people had it on their favorites list this year, and even I know a couple people who had it on their favorites last year, the year before. It must be good, but will I like this type of story? I have to tell you, I know squat, diddly squat about Greek mythology, gods. I don't know anything about the story of Achilles and the Achilles heel. I don't know anything about the Iliad. Like, I'm literally in the dark and I'm worried. But then I watched someone say that this like explained it really well and you didn't have to know the histories. Oh, I don't know why I decided to do this to myself, but here we are. I have 9 books. Last year I think I had 5. Over half of these I would not have picked up if not for these booktubers mentioning them. There's a lot at stake. I don't know what I'm gonna start with. I'm actually filming a whole different video right now. I'm gonna let those stare at me from the bookshelf for a couple days, and maybe I'll be inspired of like what I want to pick up first. So these are the 9 books that I've selected to read, and here is who I got the recommendations from originally, who matched my taste. And then also I'll pop in some people who also mention these books in their favorites videos. So almost all the titles that I picked, just based on who is most similar, they were also co-signed by many other individuals. Today is the day I start reading. I'm so excited to get into this stack. There have been quite a few booktubers who've put out their favorites videos in the last couple days. So this morning I just watched Jerry and Mo and Ashley and Sarah and Aaron and Lexi and Jesse and Emma and Joel. Also, Fadwa put out this blog post. So nothing has been bumped, don't worry. I was worried that something was going to show up, but something that did pop up is Lexi, I think, has bumped most people in general with how many books we have in common. But in her video, one of her favorite books was The House in the Cerulean Sea. So it only seems fitting that this is where I start. This was on so many people's lists. Also, Brandon, who I had a lot in common with, is currently reading this. So I'm just doing a secret buddy read with him. Hi, Brandon. We've never really talked. And of course, this was recommended to me so many times, and it's just like one of the books of the year. Before I begin, I thought it could be fun to rank these books in like my prediction of what will be my favorites. And then at the end, we can reflect on this and see if my predictions were right or if I don't know my reading taste at all, which is very possible. So starting at the bottom, I don't know, I just don't think this is gonna be for me. Song of Achilles and then Scythe. Because this is a mystery, I think we're getting closer to what I'm gonna love. I have to weirdly put Foul is Fair. Even though it was the only one that I already owned, I just have it's a hit or miss for me with revenge stories. Let's do Ghostwood Song, just because I don't know enough about it yet. Then I'm gonna put The House in the Cerulean Sea. I do think I'm gonna like this just because everybody else does. Then I'm putting The Death of Vivek Oji. Then I'm gonna put 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act. And I think that my favorite's gonna be The Midnight Library. This is my predictions. I'm gonna take a quick screenshot so I can pull this out of the video and use it later. So while I finish getting ready for the day and I start filming, let's have a booktuber pitch this to us.
My favorite book of 2020, if not probably of all time. If you haven't guessed it by now, I'm pretty sure you all already know what it is. House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This book is like a cup of warm hot chocolate on a cold day, a fuzzy blanket next to a fireplace. This book is just warm, fuzzy, happy. Everything that is contrasted, especially to this year. I think I especially just vibed with this book overall in general because of how happy it made me feel. This book has everything I could ever want in a queer love story. Two gay men taking care of these kids with unusual, strange abilities.
They have caseworkers assigned to make sure that the kids are not in danger to themselves or the world. And one day, Linus gets sent to this mysterious house where there are lots of dangerous children.
You meet all of these kids, and the story is just really about, you know, acceptance and found family and love, and that you could be different, but you're still as amazing as someone else who's normal.
So the synopsis says that this guy is traveling to an orphanage on a distant island and has to determine whether 6 dangerous magical children are so dangerous that they're likely to bring about the end of days. Oh my. Okay, got it. I got it. I get it. Okay. I'm not doing anything today besides reading this book. I could give you a list of things that I was supposed to do today, but I'm not doing any of them. And instead I'm reading this book. You know that song that's like, I was gonna clean my room, but then I got high. I was supposed to go to work, but then I got high. That's how I feel about reading today. I was supposed to film a video, but then I read this book. I was supposed to go for a walk, but then I read this book. And I can't really exist until I finish it. This is a fantasy situation, but like every conversation, everything that's going on has a very real world influence and can be brought back to like the reality of oppression and control over the population and colonization. This whole conversation right here between Linus and Arthur, how Linus thinks that these children, based on this book of rules and regulations, they should be living a certain way, the orphanage should be run a certain way because it's in the children's best interest. It exists for a reason, Arthur. It's a governance that guides the world of magical youth. Experts from various fields all weighed in. Human experts, says Arthur. Not a single magical person had any say in the creation of that tome. Every word came from the hand and mind of a human. No magical being has ever been in a position of power, not at Dykeme, not in any role in the government. They aren't allowed. They're marginalized no matter their age. Linus is like, there's a reason for all things, Arthur. Our predecessors knew the only way to help assimilate magical persons into our culture was to have stringent guidelines set in place to assure a smooth transition. Arthur's gaze hardened slightly, and who said they needed to be assimilated at all? Who said they needed to be assimilated at all? This book is going exactly in the direction that I thought it was going, and I love it! I love the conversations, I love the children, I love the journey we're on. Thank you. Rob brought me home my favorite salad. Ooh. My reading update is that I'm 3/4 of the way through, and chapter 14 was one of my favorite chapters of any book I've ever read.
Oh snap.
You don't even know what I'm reading.
Read a few books.
You should read this. The way that the town interacts with the children when they go like across the ferry, because they're stuck on their island and there's certain things happening like in the town, but when all the children go to town, and how the people at the hardware store, like the conversations that happen, and then the way that people talk to them at the record store, it's just like so wholesome and lovely. I have to go. It's very loud here. I'm finishing this tonight. Okay, a lot has happened since I saw you last, which was only like 48 hours ago, but I need to update you on 3 reading things. Firstly, I finished The House in the Cerulean Sea and I loved it. I can't believe I like randomly just decided to start with this and it ended up being 5 stars. This was probably the safest 5-star bet because everybody loves it so much. If it's not already happening though, I anticipate a lot of people in the coming months calling this overhyped because of all the love that it's getting. It is a simple, straightforward story, and I feel like you know the ending from the beginning. Like, you know where the story's gonna go, and it's kind of a safe story. It's really whimsical and really fun, but it has some darker humor, and all of the children have experienced trauma. There are definitely a few surprises along the way. It's not like completely predictable, but the overarching storyline and where it's going, like, you get it right off the bat. And it's lovely and it's adorable, and the little romance, what the heck? I just love this so much, and I feel like every Goodreads review I read talks about how the book made them feel as opposed to what's actually going on in the story. It was like a hug. It was so welcoming and it was so lovely. So I get it. I definitely get it. Next up, I wanted to read something that wasn't that tone. I wanted to read something darker, something more rooted in reality. So I picked up Foul is Fair by Hannah Capin. Let's hear someone introduce it.
About a girl named Jade who is drugged and raped at a party and then later seeks revenge on everyone who was involved. So
okay, so I hate this book. I feel terrible. It's not funny, and I don't like, if the people who love it, like, I get it, I respect it, and I feel like this happened to me in the first time I was reading people's favorites. Is I experienced a book and I'm sure I was like, I don't know how to feel because this is a whole video about reading people's favorite books and I don't want to feel like I'm shitting on someone's favorite. And obviously I'm not, like, we all get that. Books are subjective, whatever. I should feel guiltier that I picked this up myself. Like, I was wrong about my own opinion. This keeps happening to me with this concept. I think that I love revenge stories. I think that I like girl gangs. I also love Shakespeare style stuff, but the writing of this makes me want to scream. I just hate it. I don't even think I can explain it. It's just very over the top. Not the storyline, like, it fits the storyline, but just the way that the person is narrating the story is just not something that appeals to me. But it is perfect for what it is. Like, it fits with the play. I keep thinking I'm gonna love books like this, and then I end up hating a lot of them. Obviously, this is a difficult situation, and it's a difficult story to tell, and it's important, and it's necessary, and all of those things, but I really dislike it. I'm sad. I never expect to hate a book. I never hope to hate a book, but for now, this is a DNF, and maybe I'll pick it up later in the video. I'm glad I gave it a chance. But today I went to work and I wanted to listen to an audiobook for a little bit, and I reserved a couple from the library, and one came in today and it was the Midnight Library. So I just started it, and you guys, I am in love with it, like obsessed with it. I am 2 hours into the 10-hour audiobook, and now that I'm home, I'm switching to the physical copy because I do enjoy the audiobook, but I think it would be more impactful if I took it a little bit slower and let things sink in a little more. Here, I'll have somebody pitch it.
She goes to this place called the Midnight Library, which is this place that is between life and death. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of books on the shelves of all the different decisions that she could have made in her life, and she kind of gets the opportunity to explore those potential realities.
I'm gonna look so stupid when I'm editing this. I love how the story is being told. She goes to this library and there's like a fairy godmother of sorts there, or like, what do they call it in 17 again? A spirit guide. But I just love like their kind of back and forth banter, and she has only revisited her life once so far and I already love it. Guess what, my friends? I loved the Midnight Library. I don't know if I'm ready to give this 5 stars. I think it's a 4.5 if I'm being super specific, but like, oh my god, it was so good. It was right up my alley, and you know what? It taught me something just about my own reading. So I've always said that I hate, what did I call it? Like spy books where someone is pretending to be somebody that they're not. I don't like it. But then there's been a couple books in the last few years that I feel like had that trope, but I enjoyed. So I was trying to figure out like what within this thing is something I like, and I figured it out. I don't like stolen identity stories, but I love mistaken identity stories. So basically what happens when she goes into these different lives that she could have lived in these alternate universes is she just like pops up in somebody, like in her own existence, but in a different life scenario, and she has no references to like where she's at, what has happened. She basically picks a life based on something like, oh, I wish that I had never said no to my dad about this. And then she pops up into her life as if that hadn't happened. But obviously the butterfly effect is the whole idea that one small change can cause all of these other changes. The Butterfly Effect is one of my favorite movies of all time, though I haven't watched it in probably 10 years because I can't stomach it. I've tried a couple times and I can't get through it. But so she immediately just has to think on her feet and act like she is herself. Like she knows everybody around her. She knows the scenario. She knows who she's like what she's talking about. And I love that because it's like she's just improvising. That's what I like about mistaken identity, is you're mistaken for somebody, even if it's like yourself, and you just have to like roll with it and figure it out as you go. And I think it's really fun, and it's less malicious than stolen identity. Sometimes books with mistaken identity do turn into like a malicious thing, but this was just so nice. And even though I would call it like predictable, the idea of the story and how it ends, not every single moment is predictable, but the overarching theme and what you're supposed to take away, I think like you already kind of know what that's going to be going in. My mom just dropped off some bookmarks for me to photograph. We can pop on the Etsy shop, and I'm just wondering if there's one with like a moon and then one with books. There's always ones with books, and then I can take a Bookstagram picture with the book. There's a butterfly. Oh, there's a moon! Oh my gosh, there's a fairy. Ooh, what's this one? I've never seen this bead before. Sorry, I know a lot of you won't care, but we have a bookmark shop. I'll link it down below. Look how cute this is. By the time this video goes up, I don't know what's going to be in stock because we restock like every single week, but check it out if you want. This lighting is so weird. I need to clean my window. The passing headlights will illuminate my face so you can see me. Maybe that's for the best though, because like I'm not fully ready. I once again find myself in a parking lot for an hour, and I brought 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act. Last time we were here, I was reading Tender's The Flash. This is definitely a different vibe. I didn't think about how dark it was gonna be, so I don't know. It is like 12 hours later. I haven't gotten too much reading done. I'm like halfway through. I was looking for post-its and couldn't find any, so I've just been like tabbing every single page. Actually, let's have Natasha tell us something.
This is just something that I personally believe needs to be taught in schools. I think everybody Canadian, not Canadian. Everyone should pick this up and read it.
I completely agree. I've been working from home today and just like reading a little bit as I go. I had to stay home because we are having a moisture slash perhaps mold problem. So you might be able to see a little tube running to suck all the moisture out of the house and also my eyeballs. It's like an industrial size dehumidifier and my mouth is very dry. So this is exactly what it says it is, and it had a really, really good intro. He started with talking about his history on being a trainer for Indigenous topics and why as a blogger it matters to him, why in his professional life as an Indigenous relations trainer it's important, and in his personal life as an Indigenous person, how he looks for opportunities for reconciliation. I really appreciated the beginning about the terminology between like Indigenous, First Nations, Indian, Aboriginal, and the history of all of those terms, where they came from, who uses them, which ones are proper and which ones aren't. I grew up in Kelowna, and what is now known as West Kelowna used to be called West Bank. And I think it was 2007. And I was dating a First Nations person. There was this thing going on about changing the name of the city from like West Bank, because of the West Bank First Nations, to West Kelowna. And that is the first time I was exposed to, I think, any conversation around First Nations communities and probably the term First Nations in general. That would have been 11th grade, maybe the beginning of 12th grade. And the name did end up getting changed to West Kelowna, and there was a lot of pushback for it and a lot of understanding that I got to be exposed to and things that I learned in that time in my life. And then soon after that I went to an arts school, and there's this one class that was taught by this well-known guy in town. What was the class called? Personal development, something like that. Rawl is just like a well-known figure in the community. He's originally from Trinidad, but he talks a lot about First Nations concerns in the community and brings a lot of different like communities together, hosts a lot of things, has a lot of like broad conversations that I attend and love. So these are definitely not points that I'm unfamiliar with, but it is giving me the language and the better ability to discuss specific things. Like even the conversation in the beginning about language and designations, I think would be really valuable for a lot of people. This book is really well organized. It's talking about history, it's talking about the future, it's discussing a lot of things that like the average person might not know, whether that's settlers or First Nations individuals, because I know like a huge part of the Indian Act and just like the history of the Canadian government in general is like the whole point is to get rid of the Indian problem, and that talks like it talks about that at length, like that whole phrase, and that is accomplished in their mind, the powers that be, the people in power, by not allowing First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. It wants them to not know their history. The act wants to eradicate an entire culture. So there are so many people who have grown up being like ripped away from their families and their history, and not allowed the chance to even learn about their own culture or how the Indian Act has affected their lives. For me, the most impactful part of this is learning about like the years. For example, the harmful stereotypes associated with Indigenous people and alcohol. And the year in here was given that it was illegal for Indigenous people to purchase alcohol it was illegal to sell alcohol to an Indigenous person. It was illegal for Indigenous people to be drunk in public or even just consume alcohol, like a felony to consume alcohol in public until 1950. And just seeing those numbers, like the residential schools are something that I have learned about a ton. And like, I know how recent residential schools have been a thing and how still like the government getting rid of residential schools, there is still a pathway that they have managed to keep where Indigenous children are still removed from their families more so than any other community in Canada. That timeline is very familiar to me, but seeing the other timelines of the alcohol situation just makes you more aware of how recent things are. Anyway, I'm now at the point part 2 of dismantling the Indian Act and ideas of like where we could go from here, how to accomplish those things. I did see like a list towards the end of calls to action, so super valuable, and I'll finish this up later tonight. Since we're hanging out, let's open some packages together. This has nothing to do with the challenge, but we're just vlogging my life. This one I actually already opened, but it is another copy of the project. I think the American and Canadian distributors both sent me arcs of the project, but I wanted to open it with you because it is like more exciting. The other package was just the book, but this one comes with this folder, and you know I love a good marketing package. So Unity Project Research. Ooh, I got a badge. So basically the project is about a girl who is trying to get her sister like out of a cult, and so this is cool. So she has to infiltrate the Unity Project and do some investigations. Then from Indigo, I almost just died. These never open the way that I hope. Oh, no. We've got 2 things and they look nice together. This is Concrete Rose. Look, it says signed 1st edition. Very cool. Wow. I love Angie Thomas. I loved The Hate You Give. I loved On the Come Up, and I'm very excited to read that. And then this is called Whites on Race and Other Falsehoods. Tega Uwagba wrote a book that I've talked about way too much, but I'm going to talk about it again if I can find it. This is Little Black Book, and it is a book that I wish that I had when I was in art school, just about to graduate, and the book that I highly recommend you like gift, I don't know, yourself or your teenager who is just starting, especially like an artistic career, and they need to learn like the very basics about invoices, negotiating jobs, like public speaking, like how to have an interview. I think this is just a must read. So I wanted to pick up anything else she ever wrote, and this is a very tiny, I think, collection of essays. She explores the colossal burden of whiteness as told by someone who is, in her own words, a reluctant expert. Uwagba deftly interrogates the status quo, and in doing so provides an intimate and deeply compelling portrayal of an unavoidable facet of the Black experience. And now I'm going to try very hard to not get distracted by these and continue with my regularly scheduled reading. So I finished this and it's an absolute 5-star. I knew it would be a fantastic recommendation. I didn't realize that the 100 calls to action at the end were the ones that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission already released like years ago. Like that's what that whole section was, which I've read through before, but it's definitely valuable to have it in here. But the part that was the most valuable at the end, it says list of 21 things you can do to help change the world. That's really short and straight to the point. And then also there's additional reading, which I think is great, including a chunk of children's books. Amazing. Since I'm reading all of your recommendations, I also wanted to pop this in as a recommendation to you, because I think I ended up reading this as well. I thought that these would be a good pairing for the reason that I thought that I could connect these in a conversation about the ways that white people oppress various communities in very intentional ways. For example, Black communities being over-policed and that leading to the higher rates of crime statistic that isn't like true. And then Indigenous communities intentionally given like agricultural land to farm from, but not given the proper supplies or areas in which to do that, and then using that as a reason for the government to take away land because the Indigenous people are not as successful as the government like set them up to be. But that's not what this ended up being anyway. It ended up being a lot more valuable and something that I just want to recommend. I think a lot of people could really benefit from reading this book or this essay. So I would recommend that you pick this up with a highlighter in hand and the preparedness to be challenged in all of the performative activism that you may have participated in the last, especially 8 months since the murder of George Floyd, which was the inspiration for this essay. It's not like anything I've read before, and I think it would be a pretty what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, like uncomfortable read for a lot of white people. So that's why I would recommend it. It's not nice. It's not here to hold your hand and give you an action plan for anything or wrap up in a nice way that makes you feel good about yourself. It said what it said, and you should probably hear it. Good morning, friends. It has been like a week since I've listened to an audiobook, and I'm really itching to listen to a story. But then this morning I learned that Scythe is only available on Audible, which I'm not gonna do. And then The Death of Ivic OG I can get on Libby, but I'm like first in line, so I'm just waiting. If you guys don't know, Libby is like Overdrive. It's like the library audiobook app, and it's the same thing, it's just a way better interface, so I recommend it. So I'm gonna go with Ghostwood Song, I think, because I listened to a sample of it and it has someone with a southern accent as the narrator, and I just feel like that will add the authenticity to the story, and it'll be nice to just like hear a ghost story. Doesn't that sound fun?
15 minutes or 15 hours?
15 minutes.
The whole book?
No, just this chapter.
How many chapters are there?
I don't know.
21?
I'm listening to this on Libro FM. If you want to sign up and get a free audiobook, it gives me a free audiobook too. So I'll put that link down below. Let's listen.
Well, my senses strain. There's something waiting for me in the silences between the notes we play.
So I didn't get too much reading done today, obviously, because I was at work, but I've been listening in the vehicle and then on my lunch, and I haven't gotten that far into it because I listened to the first 50 pages and then I had to listen to the first 50 pages again because there's a lot of family dynamics and relations and like step people, and I think I was getting confused, and I like to have a really solid idea of who the characters are. As you might know, I like to draw family trees a lot, so I just wanted to reestablish it like really solidly before I got into the story, and I think I have it now. And we're just getting into like some weird magical fiddle storyline, so I think it's gonna be interesting. And today, because of me, Wheezy put out the podcast episode that I guess she had recorded a while ago but didn't know if she wanted to post it, of her top 14 books of 2020. I was basically in a live and I told her what I was doing, reading favorites, and then yeah. And I feel very validated. One part was thinking there might be another recommendation in here that I could read, but then I was like stressing out about it because it's a little late to add a whole nother book in here. But the other part was just having the validation that this is a person who I should have chosen, who we read really similarly. If the last one is Ghostwood Song, let's maybe listen.
The last book I want to talk about in my top 14 of 2020 is Ghostwood Song by Erica Waters. I dedicated an entire episode to this one, which was episode 8. There's bluegrass and haunted fiddles, queer girls and soft boys, and the whole atmosphere of the book is just lonesome. Please read this book, and if you are into audiobooks, this audiobook is damn near perfect.
I am really enjoying the audiobook. Of the 14 books, I have read 12 of them out of the 14, and by the end of this challenge I will have read 13 out of the 14. The only one mentioned that I haven't is Cloud in a Cornfield, which she said isn't actually, like, the writing isn't that good, but it just like was good for her. We definitely read really similarly. We don't always rate similarly, but of her top 14, 7 of them I also gave 4 or 5 stars, and then another 5 of them I have read but I gave 3 stars. So I guess Ghostwood Song I'm either gonna give 5 stars or 3 stars. That's the only way this could go. Do you ever take a nap? Like 10 minutes, a 10-minute nap, and it feels like literal days. I don't know, I probably take a nap like twice a year. I don't just fall asleep ever. But I go home from work and I immediately just like fell asleep. You can also hear Rob snoring on the couch because we both just fell asleep. I finished Ghostwood Song though. Matches my outfit, so I'm a winner. This was a really quick book to get through. I would definitely recommend it for like fans of Alatsue. I don't think it was as good, but it has like that mix of real world. It has a murder mystery storyline with a family member. It has a bit of magic. It's kind of gothic. I really liked the vibe and I really liked the writing. I just didn't fall in love with the characters at any point. Weirdly, this book made me crave reading The Raven Cycle. I feel like it had some similar vibes and I would definitely recommend it for fans of The Raven Cycle. On paper, this book is great. Like, the atmosphere was great. The storylines were great. We have great queer rep. There's like a love triangle that I think is done well. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and sad things and happy things. Her brother has been accused of murder and she's trying to figure out what really happened, and involved in that is basically this magical fiddle that disappeared with her father, and it's kind of like a siren call. Like it's calling to her. It's very interesting. There are some really tense scenes. I liked it. Overall, it was a 3. So just okay for me, but obviously a favorite of lots of people. So sad that I didn't love it, but excited to move on to something else. I just got the email, like as I woke up from my nap, that the audiobook is in from my library. So for The Death of Vivek Oji. So I don't think I'm going to be reading anything tonight. I'm off to make a charcuterie board and hang out with my hubby, and I have all weekend to read, so I'll check in with you. I am exactly halfway through my reading. I've completed 4, best to worst, look like that. I've half finished this, and then I have 4 more to go. So this weekend I'm doing nothing. Like, I'm not getting ready, I'm not filming, I'm not going anywhere, I'm doing nothing. So I just feel like if I really tried, I could knock out at least 2 books, but I'm torn because I want to start with this. I think it would be good after some fantasy, and also it's the shortest. But now that I have that audiobook, like, I obviously want to listen to it, but I have no reason to listen to it because I'm literally doing nothing. So I think I'll just read it physically, and then maybe a couple times throughout the day the audiobook. I know I'm like cleaning the carpets at some point today. I don't know, but let's listen to Sage's description, because I flew through all of these videos so fast I still don't actually know what any of these books are.
This is about the inevitable death of Vivek Oji and who he was as a person, his
identity, his gender fluidity, his relationships with his family, some very taboo relationships as well, and how this person's existence impacted everyone else so much. And I just, it broke my heart into pieces, and I have not collected them yet.
Okay, let's get into it. I've been recommended Freshwater a ton over the last couple months, so we'll see where I land with this author. Look how empty in here. The bed's gone, the carpet is clean, the bed's coming back in. It looks like we're moving or something. I've gotten a really good way through The Death of Vivek OG, and I like it so far. I like a book that sets up like an event happens, or like you know the end of the book from the beginning. Like I just love that theme, trope, narrative choice where like you know at the end of the book someone's gonna die, and then you're reading up into that moment, and then a skilled author will still manage or will intend to like make a couple twists or reveals that you didn't see coming because you were just distracted by the fact that like you already know where the book is leading. And I know I've heard people say that the end has made them cry, so I don't know where it's really going, but I appreciate that there are multiple perspectives, which I wasn't expecting, and the audiobook has multiple narrators, which is really cool. So it's basically the story of Vivek's life. There's like blackouts and I don't know like what's going on with Vivek, and I think that's the whole point, is like nobody really knows what's going on. And I only just realized that the cover is hair, like in a plate or braid. So it's like everyone's experience with Vivek and how Vivek has impacted all of these different people's lives. That's essentially what the story is. It's one of the first times that Vivek's family realizes there's something like weird about him just not behaving like other boys that they know, is when he grows his hair out really long, and everyone starts to question his sexuality and his identity. It is really lovely. So yeah, I'll finish it and let you know, and put my room back together. I really have no words to like properly describe how I feel, how this book made me feel. Vivek's life was tragically short, just as like he didn't even have the opportunity to really figure out who he was, and now he's not even a real person, but like now he never will. And like the scene at the end, you can't think about it. Oh, with Vivek's mom and her reaction to just like the reveals at the end was one of the most devastating scenes I've ever read. Like obviously this is 5 stars and I have nothing else to say. Fuck. Hello again. Today I had a lot going on. I was trying to find my phone. I filmed, I edited, I uploaded, but Bree is currently doing reading sprints, so I'm gonna hang out and I'm gonna read. How do I feel? I feel excited. I don't know why, but I really don't like starting a new book in the evening. And I can't explain why I feel that way, but I feel like I like to start books. If I'm going to start a book, I want to do it early in the day and I want to accomplish a lot, but I had a lot going on today. But of course you only see me lying on the couch. The boys are just grabbing groceries, so I have maybe like half an hour to myself to get into the beginning of this. And something just occurred to me, that if Rob listened to it on Audible, because it's only on Audible, then we would still have access to it on Audible. I think that's a thing. Even if you don't have your account anymore, the books that you already bought and downloaded in the past are still available to you. Interesting, interesting. Okay, I'm gonna start this physically and then we'll just like see what happens from there. This book is so fast paced. Like I feel like I could finish it today, but I definitely need some energy. So we're gonna coffee it up. I'm 200 pages in. Granted, it has been like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours since I talked to you last. But just right out the gate, it's super engaging. So you learn about the scythes, which are basically just like normal people who are given the responsibility to take lives because like natural death doesn't happen anymore. And at the very beginning, this one comes to this house and is explaining what the scythes do. And then we're following 2 different characters. Side note, I have a new creamer that I'm in love with. So now my iced coffees are dairy free. That was too much. And basically we have these 2 characters who are the apprentices because one of them is going to be a future scythe. But there's like some tension going on between the 2 of them, and then some wild stuff starts happening. It's just like such an interesting premise because I assumed that they were some type of like fantasy creature. That was me going into the book with absolutely no knowledge, and that people couldn't just get selected to be scythes, but they do. And there are these moments where like an entire mall worth of people will be killed because like back in like nowadays there are things where there are mass casualties, and since that doesn't exist anymore, they will like recreate moments like that just by taking the amount of lives that like traditionally would be dying. And like as a scythe, you have the choice of whose life you want to take, and it takes a certain type of person to do that role, and it's not about like whether you want to do it or not, and the people who don't want to do it are more likely to be chosen because like they don't have any ill intent with taking on that role in society. And it's just so strange seeing these people be trained in like the art of killing. It's very strange, and I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. Yet I still have never heard the full synopsis of this book, so let's listen to somebody describe it.
This is a story about where there's no hunger, no disease, no misery in the world, nothing. Everything's been conquered by humans, including death, so people can reset to earlier ages. The only thing is that population still needs to be controlled, so we have scythes who are in control of killing people to keep the population in check, and our 2 main characters are being trained to become scythes.
Today is definitely not going as planned. I woke up with some stomach pain, and then I still started getting ready for the day. Like I took a shower and I started doing my makeup, and then halfway through getting ready I just like projectile vomited. Suffice to say, I didn't go into work. I'm working from home, but I feel like mentally fine, which makes me think it's not like the flu. I don't know, my stomach is just like making the craziest noises. So I just thought I would check in quickly before I start my next book, because I think I'm just going to listen to an audiobook today while I work since I'm home. I don't really have that much to say about Scythe. I'm giving it like a 3. It was good, but a lot of things ended up bugging me, and I definitely made a mistake picking up the audiobook. The narrator was good, but I picked it up like the second half of part 3. It's broken up into 4. Was it 4 or 5 parts? 5 parts. And one of my least favorite things happened. This isn't actually affecting my rating, but I just have to tell you something that I forgot that I hate, because I only usually see it in TV and movies. But it's when usually it's like an alien who seems to speak like perfect English, but then there's always a part in a movie where like they pronounce a word wrong and there's no reason behind it. Like based on the other vocabulary that this character has, the words used in this world, they should know how to pronounce this word. But there's always a moment in like a TV show where an alien is like handed, I don't know, a burrito, and they're like, here, alien friend, here's a burrito, and the alien goes, a burrito, and just like puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable, and I hate it. So I feel like it would have been fine if I was just reading this physically, but because I listened to the audiobook just for this section, I had to listen to them talk about the pronunciation of torture and convicted. There was a couple other ones I don't even know, like prison or something. There's just like this sentence that is like, I believe it's pronounced a torture. And I hated it, just based on like, I don't know, everything else. And when this book is supposedly set, I get that the world is without like pain and suffering and death and illness and poverty, and it's like this utopian setting, but like, really? The word torture? Yet they have so many other words in their vocabulary that don't apply to the way that the world currently exists. Okay, I'm done my rant, I promise. It's really not that deep. I found the first half of the book really intriguing. This happens to me a lot with like dystopian type settings, is I love the world building, or I just love getting to understand what's going on. So like the beginning of the Hunger Games, the beginning of Divergent, learning about the structure of society and how things work, like that's my favorite part, and getting to know the characters. And then once all of the books go into like taking down the political system, or like the romance takes center stage, or when the story starts to evolve, garbage truck, more into the characters learning about the world that they live in as opposed to you learning about the world, that's just when a book traditionally loses me. And I know it's not the book, like that's just me and the type of stories that I like to read. So I'm not denying that it wasn't engaging and interesting, and I just don't think I'll think about this ever again. And I won't be continuing in the series, though Rob did. And I can't remember what he said, but I think he liked each book in the series less than its predecessor. I think I'm gonna listen to the like mystery one. I can't remember what it's called. Something about someone's daughter. I'm gonna get my work done and try to settle my stomach. I'm scared to like put anything in my body, like even like Pepto, because if I haven't eaten anything, like will that help or will it? I don't know. And so I haven't had caffeine today, and I feel like I'm just asleep. I'll probably see you tomorrow. I have now finished The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, and I'm a little sad about it. I didn't have like super high expectations because I'd never heard of it before, but I was hoping like because it's a mystery, it would really do it for me, but no. It was, I think, a 3-star overall. It's funny because if I go and look at the reviews on Goodreads, the ones that are lowly rated and the reasonings they gave for their low rating, like I don't agree with any of them. The number one things that people seem to take issue with is, one, the interjections of the characters. Basically, this is written like as a book. The main character is writing the story of all of these girls and how they met and their, you know, coming together and solving a mystery. And then in the middle of paragraphs, one of the girls will just like say something like, I didn't say that, or that didn't really happen, or just like adds a little commentary as she's writing the novel, which I think is so cool and my favorite gimmick. Like I really loved it. Though, side note, if you are wondering like which of these books to listen to as an audiobook, this would probably go pretty low on the list of recommendations from me. If you're somebody who listens to audiobooks faster than their intended speed, I had to immediately switch after like 50 pages to reading it physically, which is fine, because if I'm going to listen to an audiobook at the same speed in which I would read it with my eyes, it just, the little interjections are happening too quickly to even keep track of. Just because she's writing about the characters doing something and then that character will say something, and it's harder to differentiate in the audiobook if it's happening in the story or outside the story. The audiobook itself is good though, like the narrator is great, and I'm sure it works for a lot of people. But if I was gonna like rank these by audiobook, because I sampled all of them just because that's what I like to do, here's probably how I would rank them. Yes, I have started The Song of Achilles. We'll talk about it in a minute. This one doesn't come as an audiobook, and I wish it did, and I hope it does in the future. These two are at the top, especially because I just feel fantasy is the most conducive to an audiobook. But I don't think I read a single one of these books solely on audio anyway, so like I haven't had the full experience. Take my opinion with a grain of salt. Back on track. That's one thing that bugged people. The other thing is the accuracy of all of the characters introduced in here, which didn't matter to me because I am no further beyond just a first name basis with everyone in here from Sherlock to Watson to Dr. Moreau and Frankenstein and Dracula and Jekyll and Hyde. So my opinion was definitely not tainted with being really familiar with the stories and like issues with the canon and whatnot. For my reading preferences, I just prefer a little more suspense, and I think I would have liked more mysteries happening rather than a lot of characters outside of like the core group of girls. And the thing is, like, you know how the story's gonna go just based on the narration style, which is fine because it's not supposed to be like a thriller suspense book, but I think I would have liked it more if it were, because once we got introduced to all of the characters and their first kind of scenes, there just wasn't that much interesting me to continue. So there was like 200 pages where I was just like bored. Of all the books and all of my opinions, I really think that this one is just a me thing, because I think what this book set out to do, it did it perfectly, and I have absolutely no critiques of the actual story. I am now on to the last book, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I am 30 pages in and realizing I don't know what this book is about. I listened to the first 30 pages on audio. It's a good audiobook, but there were so many characters introduced that I had to start the book over and read it physically, which I will be continuing with because I have to draw a character map. Beyond like references in Shakespeare, I am really just in the dark. I think that I have read the Odyssey. Like I own the Odyssey, but I also own Sherlock Holmes and I haven't read that. It wouldn't have been this version that I read anyway, but I think I have, but I cannot remember in what context. And you know that my memory when it comes to books is usually pretty good, especially books from like my childhood, teenage years. But I'm thinking I read it for some type of academic purpose and maybe didn't fully pay attention. I don't know, and I don't remember, and I've probably contradicted myself when talking about Homer in general. There were, I think, 2 or 3 people on the booktube list, not ones who had like huge matches for me, but that had it in their end of year favorites.
The thing with this book is that I had seen it on so many shelves for so long, and I was so intimidated, that's the word, because I thought, oh, it's Greek mythology, I'm not gonna understand. It was so well done, and the author makes it so accessible.
Basically, this is the story of Achilles and his good friend
Who?
I cannot pronounce this. Patroclus? But we all know they ain't friends. No, I don't think so. Like, that's, no.
The romance for me, I think Achilles and Patroclus' story is essentially a romance novel.
It was romance.
Like, that's for me how I read it, so that's how I classified, that's where it's sitting on my shelf for the rest of the romance books. This love story, guys, Achilles is my favorite problematic thing. I think this is one of the books that made me cry the most this year.
Oh no!
Yeah, the book that made me cry the most as well. My heart was broken. I wanted a different ending than what I got. I know how the story of Achilles ends because
I don't know how. I don't know anything.
Patroclus is an exiled prince who is sent from his kingdom to a different kingdom where Achilles is the prince, and they meet, a relationship begins. There is the Battle of Troy that happens in the Iliad, and Patroclus and Achilles are drawn to that. And that's sort of a synopsis or premise of this book.
Okay, I'm in. I cannot put this book down. I love it. Ooh. I like learning about Greek gods, apparently. Look out, my whole world is changing. Don't mind my drawers here, I had to take them out of my closet. As an aside, I'm sure that somebody watching this probably made an association between me being sick and my house being moldy. Don't worry, I feel great now. It's days later. The closet is fine now. Everything is fresh and joyful and fixed. We realized the issue, and it was something quite funny about the humidifier in our whatever ventilation furnace thing. It was just pouring water into a certain part of the house, also dripping water into other parts of the house, so cool. But all is well now if you were concerned about anything going on. This is a one-day, read in one day kind of book. I'm not really sure how this has happened, but the reveals have been shocking for me, which is very fun. And I feel like not probably the case for most readers. I don't really, I don't know the history of anything. But unlike the Jekyll and Hyde book that I just read, in which I feel like I could have gotten more from the story if I had had more experience with those characters already. I didn't realize that the last 2 books I read were inspired by other stories, which is, I don't know, a cool way to end it. But in this one, I'm glad that my knowledge is extremely limited because things are surprising to me. All of these characters who are having relations with each other and children with each other, but then children with someone else, and people are sleeping with each other, but they're in committed relationships, and I'm like, whoa, back up. But I'm getting to experience it for the first time, which is so fun. Also, don't ask me why, but I definitely thought this was YA, and it's not. Anyway, I think I also better understand why this has gotten the attention that it has. It's well written and it's a good story, and obviously it's based off of things that other people have enjoyed, but I think it also has to do with the fact that it's a male-male romance. I don't want to say because it's male-male romance written by a woman, but male-male romances written by women do tend to get a lot of hype and attention in the book community, or probably just the planet. I have 100 pages to go. I just realized there is a glossary at the end and images to enjoy and a Q&A with the author. So we are forging on ahead. Okay, final thoughts for The Song of Achilles is gonna be at this awkward angle in a busy parking lot because I'm about to be late for an appointment. So I definitely get it. I don't know, everybody's reviews being oh, this made me cry, I will never get over it, I'm sobbing, I'm dying. I didn't feel that level of passion for it, which makes me feel a little dead inside, and also means I can't give it a 5. It was a 4, if not a 3.75. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. I enjoyed the action scenes more than I thought I would. I enjoyed all of it. I thought it was all well written. I wanted a little more convincing of their relationship. Not convincing because it's believable. I don't know. Especially with me not knowing the ending of the story. You'd think that I got shocked and it was a really impactful moment, but I could see where it was going. I just wanted more I don't know, evidence of why they liked each other so much. There was a lot of passion, but I wanted events where you saw them do something where they lacked a little bit of personality, mainly the main character. Achilles, upon research, I understand his character dynamic and the type of person that he is, but I just wanted a little bit more from all the characters, I think. And while the first half really pulled me in and worked for me and it all kept my attention, and obviously it's really readable, I read it in one day, the second half definitely didn't live up to what the first half did, and I just wanted more. I don't know. I mean, I liked it more than I expected to, so that's a huge win for me. So to wrap up, just thank you all for making awesome content that I could react to and I could read your favorites. I had a lot of fun doing this and finding books that I wouldn't have picked up on my own. Let's get into my final ranking. So here are my final results versus what I thought the final results would be. I guess the biggest titles that I was wrong about was Foul is Fair. I don't even think it's fair to put it in this stack because I didn't finish it and I don't intend to. Also, Ghostwood Song I expect to love more. This I expected to love less. This is what I thought would be my favorite, and I definitely underestimated The House in the Cerulean Sea. I think the biggest accomplishment here is besides the one I didn't finish, I didn't hate anything. I didn't give under a 3. So I was wrong about a lot of things, but oh my gosh, I trust Booktubers' taste. That's the biggest success. My favorite thing about doing this video is throughout the month, a lot of people that I've mentioned have been reading the favorites of other people that I've mentioned. Like I said, I saw Brandon reading House in the Cerulean Sea, and then I saw Gabby reading A Song of Achilles, which I'm so excited to see her thoughts. And then I saw Noelle reading The Death of Ibugoji. It was also cool to get to read some books here that were in like other people's favorites from last year. Like I know these have popped up for years on BookTube. So in general, it was a really good time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know, I don't know, have you read any of these? Put it in the comments below. And I will see you soon. Bye.